Welcome to the show where we discuss the first Marvel Netflix series and discern the truth about why this show stands above the rest. The elements of quality storytelling that other shows are blind to.
But not this show.
So join us as we start Discerning Daredevil. Oh yeah, and tonight we're talking about Season 3, Episode 5, The Perfect Game. How you doing tonight, Dragon?
Doing good.
Ooh, cool. So, going through these Daredevil folks, going through Season 3, we'll be doing, just in case anyone's kind of catching this as their first Marvel Netflix that we've done, we'll be going through the seasons individually of Punisher Season 2, Jessica Jones Season 3, eventually Iron Fist Season 2, I guess. And, we'll be doing that closer to the launch of Disney Plus. But since Daredevil is our favorite of the Marvel Netflix shows, it's the one that has the most overarching arc to it, the most satisfying payoffs to it. We still want more of it, don't get me wrong, but what we did get was very satisfying. We're still doing them episode by episode. We're still checking along. And tonight, Dragon, we have one of my favorites of the season, man. This one, I think the conversation will go by quickly because there's not a lot of moving pieces to this one. But to be honest with you, because of the fact that this one is so self-contained, I mean, you know how I like a good bottle episode, Dragon. And this one, while not particularly a bottle episode per se, it kind of falls into that sort of it's kind of in the family of episodes. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily a bottle episode, but it's in that same realm of it's a very, very focused episode, I guess. And I like it for that. It does some really great things. We're definitely going to have some things to talk about with the Dare to Be Different section. And Dragon, one could say that I think we should just give the directors of this. Who was the director of this one, Dragon? Am I putting you on?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'm sorry. We need to give the cast and crew of Daredevil Season 3, specifically this episode, props, man. You know why, Dragon?
Why?
Because crafting an episode this outside the box, it must have been hard, Dragon. Must have been really hard.
Really, really hard.
Must have been really hard. see, I was going somewhere with that one.
You were going somewhere with it. I really wish you had gone over that part of me earlier. Yeah.
All right. Anyways,
here's the thing. This feels very much like a Steven Zurich episode, but it isn't. The first watch, I assumed it was Steven Zurich episode, given how well directed it is and how the Kingpin features into it. I believe that's the next episode. I believe the next episode's kind of our standout director. That's why I was kind of a little short on that one.
Okay, sorry about that.
All right.
Anyways, you ready to get into the thick of things?
Am I ready? Yes.
Let's do it. Let's start with... Oh, sorry, I'm going backwards, not forwards. Let's start with the plot.
All right, plot goes
Vanessa, a white sheet. It could be anything, Vanessa. All right, it could be all your hopes and desires. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Plot goes a little something like this, folks. So, quite simply, the Kingpin frames Matt Murdock and looks into Bullseye's past. Meanwhile, Nadeem chases leads on Matt Murdock's location, interviewing some old friends and colleagues, which leads to him locking horns with, of course, Karen Page and Foggy Nelson. All the while, Dex, a.k.a. Bullseye, and we come to know why he's called Bullseye in this episode. Dex comes across the woman that he's been stalking by the name of Julie. And, well, the results are a little bit mixed in terms of how that interaction goes. And at the end, big surprise, Matt's alive. Again.
What a twist.
All right, that's the episode.
All right. Then let's get into arcs.
Yeah, so fascinatingly, folks, for a change...
It's a good thing that we don't have a Matt-specific category in this.
I did consider it, but I looked at it like, well, what can we really say? I mean,
No. I'm just saying, like for Jessica Jones, we have like Jessica's Journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm saying, it's a good thing we don't have a Daredevil specific title card.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Like that's kind of a happy accident.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because of course it's just so trippy. This is an episode where really we don't have a Mad arc this episode.
I mean, he shows back. Well, it's like we even the brief time that we see Matt is kind of like a weird like time shift flashback thing.
If we really stretched it, we could say there's an arc. But I mean, again, like, why bother? I mean, it's pretty straightforward what happens. Like, he basically he's us, the audience, getting the shock of a lifetime. That's really his arc there in a nutshell.
So, in lieu of talking about Matt Dragon, who do you want to start with?
Well, we got to start with the King, baby. We got to talk about Wilson Fisk. We got to talk about Fisk. Let's start with him.
All right, so Fisk is doing some homework.
Yeah. Okay, no, in all seriousness.
Moving on, next character.
Okay, no, in all seriousness. So let's break through. The Kingpin is up to a lot of stuff here. A lot of big important stuff, particularly for the next episode.
One thing about Kingpin's arc that tickles me pink every time I watch this episode.
Is it the Ben Donovan thing?
Yes, it's the Ben Donovan.
I know, right? I love
I'm glad we're all about that one.
We're gonna mention like Dare to Be Different. Let's talk about it now because it's priceless. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's really amusing because it's just like, Donovan's there just as kind of like just in case he needs the legal game. Like, why is Donovan in the room, Dragon? Why does he have to stay there?
Well, he brought in the files, and I'm sure there might be like, I don't know 100% if it's like, if he's caught with the files, if something happens or not.
Oh, okay.
The point, he brought in the files, and he's
just to transfer the files back once he's done with them.
Chances are, yeah, they don't have like culpability. You have these really specified documents to one of the FBI agents that looks pretty incriminating. That'd be my guess at it, honestly. But
All right, so basically, Donovan, while Kingpin is doing all this extensive research into his new pet project, Donovan, what is he doing, Dragon? And not Donovan Martin.
No, we love Donovan Martin, but but someone I love almost as much. Ben Donovan. Oh my goodness, I love. Sorry, I can't get enough of Big Ben Donovan. Of course, just in case anyone's just curious, because it's been a while. Big Ben Donovan, one of the great lawyer characters in Marvel Comics as well as the Marvel Netflix universe, because he was a Luke Cage character. And what's so great about him is that he became a lawyer because he was in prison so many times because he was always kind of like arrested and kind of jailed, and he kind of read up in the law library and got his law license. It's amazing. Anyway, so Ben Donovan, so it's a character I really love. He had this really great bit on the rewatch, like, oh my god, I completely forgot about this, where he brings the files as this might take a while. It's okay. I brought an audiobook. He just goes to the corner, sits in the chair. Basically, he's listening to an audiobook while Wilson Fisk is having this great little storyline in the episode.
Dragon, what audiobook do you think that Big Ben Donovan is listening to?
Well, I mean, To Kill a Mockingbird's kind of on the nose. I don't know. I mean, I know. Like, I'd love to say it's made like the audio, like Bruce Campbell's audiobook that I have.
Can I throw out something?
You have probably a better guess, so go ahead.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Huh. It's not bad.
It's a book that a lot of survivors use, like a lot of people going on Survivor use. Anyways,
if for real, then when you said a lot of survivors use, see, I'm not going to the reality show. I'm going to wait a minute.
Yeah, no. I can word that differently. Anyways.
Anyway, okay. So seriously, talking about the Kingpin's arc here. So in terms of the arc of the Kingpin, the grand narrative here, and what we kind of go with him here is that Kingpin is playing the long game. And of course, one of the great quotes from season 2 for me is like, "I played the long game, Mr. Castle." Kingpin. We have thematically the namesake of the episode translates to a little bit of everyone, but primarily to Kingpin and Bullseye here, where again the perfect game obviously correlates to Dexter's background, but also the way Kingpin's kind of working the perfect game on everybody. So he's playing the long game. He's smart enough right out the gate to know that Matt will be back, and also he's kind of like circling around the possibility he's probably Daredevil. Right at the gate, Kingpin is playing things really smart. And what's so brilliant what he does here in this episode, the thing just titillates me to no end here. I just love it so much. Is that we we do the frame up here where Kingpin is going to frame Matt Murdock using the information, basically using the Kingpin's introduction into season way back in season 1. Because remember, he's introduced at the end of that episode, at the end of the Healy trial. He's introduced at the very end of episode 3, and he's just using his grand introduction as the
That's a
ultimate.
big "you embarrass me in front of her" thing.
No, that's episode. You're thinking of episode 4. He kills that's at the end of episode 4.
Oh, yeah, right. He has that scene in the car, yeah.
See, here's the thing: the Healy thing was one of the great introductions to the Kingpin as well, because that's the bit where Daredevil gets the name from Healy when he fights him after the Healy gets basically got to the jurors and he got off, as much as Matt Murdock tried to fight that in the courtroom. Basically, he says Wilson Fisk. Says, "Oh no, I said his name. I can't say I can't say his name." Basically, he impales his head on the spike, and then we cut to basically our plot image. We cut to the rabbit in a snowstorm image and how he meets Vanessa.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the thing. So it's so brilliant how we're just using the grand introduction of the Kingpin as the way of framing Matt Murdock and just kind of really going full circle in so many ways. It's wonderful. And speaking of which, so again, he's doing that as a way, again, the grander scheme of things, he's using that as a way of ingratiating himself to the FBI. He's playing it patiently. He's trying to be on the good side of the FBI. He's doing this for 2 reasons. One, he's doing this to get on Dex's good side. He's doing this, one, to kind of earn up some trust points with him. But more importantly, he's also using it for the FBI to do his dirty work. And as well, I suppose, he's using it as a means of, again, he's changing the narrative. That's the bigger thing that he's doing with all this. He's trying to change the narrative. He's just trying to take the scrutiny off of himself and off to the people that kind of, like the quote-unquote good people that facilitate his evil acts. He's basically trying to do what he did in his trial. Again, he's trying to kind of make himself not so much the bad guy, but his underlings, the guys who actually committed the murders and grease the palms and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So basically, yeah, on the whole, he's just trying to control the narrative and put scrutiny on the quote-unquote heroes, which pretty much is it's a classic fixture of the Kingpin, kind of what we're doing the whole season. Again, retroactively rewatching this episode, it's like, oh my god, it's so true to who this character is, because the Kingpin, of course, what he's ultimately going to be doing is, again, he's going from, inmate who's just been released, who's been maligned by everybody in the press. We still have the protesters outside and everything. And he's going for the ultimate redemption story in the eyes of the public. Kingpin from the face of villainy in Hell's Kitchen to the hero of Hell's Kitchen. It's amazing what he's doing here. And again, how this again is legitimately at this point getting you to buy that he could get to that place.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, in regards to how his plan correlates to Dex, he sees as I've said before, and we have to really get into it here. So I would argue he sees potential in Dex exactly like he saw it in Frank Castle, because again, I played a long game, Mr. Castle, that sort of stuff. Where basically he created the Punisher by him giving the name of his family's killer and setting him out in the streets essentially to kill off the competition. To have this kind of this bloodthirsty element to kind of basically cut down the criminal factions, which, as we saw, Punisher has done. And in a way, he's just going to have one that's a lot more subservient and under his thumb with Bullseye. He's trying to have basically trying to forge a Punisher that he can fully control. Of course, in doing so, as you mentioned, Tiki, he's doing his homework this episode. He's doing he's doing his research. He's going through the therapy tapes in order to manipulate and guide Dex into becoming Bullseye, which of course is just kind of the ultimate henchman at his disposal.
I don't have that much to add outside of the work thing because it's
Sure.
Fuck.
All right, let's see. Last thing here. So I guess the grander plan again is just he's using him as a tool to literally as a tool to control the narrative specifically. I know I just keep saying control the narrative a lot here, but bear with me. It's just the fact that again, Bullseye is key in specifically how he's going to control the narrative, given what's going to unfold in the next episode with kind of the Daredevil of it all. And again, he's facilitating all of this with he's facilitating his rise to power in the public eye through all of this. So just as again, in essence, running the perfect game is pretty much just kind of the whole. That's the gist of the Kingpin's arc this episode. It's kind of stationary, but again, he's moving the chess pieces. That's really what he's doing here. Okay.
All right. I'm sorry. I don't have a lot to add just because we're going to be talking a lot about. Oh wait, I just realized we don't have a dynamic between Dex and Kingpin. Shit, I should have talked a little bit more. I'm sorry. My bad.
If there's anything you want to add in there with Fisk, specifically by all means.
I mean, I think you pretty much covered it. Like, I was just kind of like, I just really like how the storyline is kind of like intrinsically like linked to the hip. Like, Fisk can kind of see like certain things in himself that he can manipulate with Dex. Like, the fact that Dex is a romantic at heart, but has, kind of like this raging beast inside of him. That's something that Wilson Fisk can very much relate to and manipulate. So we're getting all these little strings. I'm sorry, Drake. Let me just cut to the root image of this episode, just because for the brief time that we're still going to have visual on this podcast. Just because I think it's a really great image. It's like Kingpin kind of like taking he is manipulating Dex, to be sure, but I definitely feel like there's a little bit of pity there as well.
Yes,
or at least a little bit of an understanding. A little bit of a kind of like a camaraderie there.
Absolutely.
All right.
There's a very fascinating parallel between them. We're going to touch on a little bit later on, but I mean, absolutely, though, you're absolutely correct that there's a really fascinating parallel in these flashbacks of how Kingpin. Again, I love that D'Onofrio in this episode. He's not really. He doesn't say a lot in this episode. He just kind of has like two speeches in the episode. Really, at the end of the day, he has two moments. He has the kind of the big kind of born again moment at the start of things. And then, of course, later on, where he kind of speaks to what his grand plan is. But again, through all of this, he's just kind of silent and observant, and just kind of watching everything unfold. And again, I just love you can feel the menace, even though he doesn't. You can see the gears of his mind turning so many points in this episode. So wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, speaking of Dex, let's talk about him.
All right, so one of the things that's fascinating about this episode is that we get very little of him outside of the flashbacks. I mean, we get the date, you know what I mean? But so much of our perception of him throughout the episode is just through that therapy stuff. And it really colors our, it really kind of the first time we saw Dex, was kind of like that tough guy, sort of on your knees, convict, that sort of tough, tough correctional officer kind of deal. Yeah. Going on. And that has really been shed throughout this episode with the therapy tapes, to the point where maybe if we didn't see the therapy tapes beforehand, his interaction with Julie, while a little bit off kilter, because of course we saw the pizza time, you know what I mean? We saw that at the end of one of the last episodes, but this is really, once we get into the therapy stuff, it's oh no, this girl is really in danger, and this guy is really off kilter, but at the same time, you feel for him, and you're like, oh man, this is all this guy ever wanted, and it's going so badly for him. And there's just a lot to unpack with him in this episode. I really do love this episode for that reason.
This is, oh my god, I was geeking, when I was watching this for the first time, I was geeking out over a lot of all the flashback stuff so much. I couldn't have been more content and more happy with it. One sequence in particular, which we'll get to, but just on the whole, though, with Dex's arc. So, you're right, Tiki. I love how we're peeling back the layers of Dex from, again, a guy who's really structured and very precise, and we learn why he is that way this episode. I thought that was, in the grand sense of things, the narrative of this season has almost an impossible Herculean task in terms of making you believe, if we're approaching Bullseye from being a good guy initially from the start. Again, many times Bullseye's just kind of bad from the start. Now we've kind of changed things up for the story they have in mind in terms of how we acclimate into the MCU. What's great about this is that, again, they've challenged themselves, and they're meeting the challenge so well, where it's okay, we're going to make him a white hat and ultimately, make him a black hat, considering the black bullseye cap of it all. A little pun there, but you see what I'm going for there. We're going to see him get to kind of being a comic book villain, essentially, from that place of just being kind of like the strict, kind of essentially, the correctional officer, kind of kind of guard of sorts. And you have to buy that and believe. And you got to remember, we're going to turn him into, you're going to make him subservient to the Kingpin. Literally next episode, if I'm recalling it correctly. Yeah, it's within an episode. We have to. But again, this episode really is setting it into motion. It's basically it's a 2-episode thing that really gets you there. But again, we've built up these little interactions between him and Fisk that are getting us there slowly but surely. And again, you buy it because they're taking their time with it. Not too much time, not too little time. It's just the right amount. It's the Goldilocks theory of storytelling.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's see. In terms of some of the specifics here with Dex. So in terms of the I love Bullseye. Psychologically, is a fascinating character. There's so much you can glean from him, and Bullseye is one of those characters where he's kind of an unreliable narrator when it comes to his past. And you can shake things up in terms of how, all we know is Bullseye is a screwed up character. The analogy I've always used is that Deadpool, because Deadpool and Bullseye were friends in the comics. The idea is that Deadpool's a guy who does the jobs for the money and just for the adventure of it all, where Bullseye's a guy who he kills because he likes it, because he's a sick puppy. And there's so many versions that kind of dictate how sick is he. Just how sick are we going with Bullseye this time around? My favorite being the Jason Aaron Bullseye, which again, ever since that Julie reveal last episode, and this episode especially with like how he's stalking Julie, it's like, yeah, this is getting right to the root of what I love about the Jason Aaron Bullseye, where it's like a screwed up Bullseye who's gonna to go up against the Punisher. He'll kidnap a number of families, and basically reenact. He'll put himself in Frank's shoes. We'll literally wear the black shirt with the skull on it. He'll go to Central Park, have the family killed just so he can feel what Punisher's feeling, so he can go up against them toe to toe, and he'll do it again until he gets it right. That's psychotic. I love that. That's great. And again, that's the Jason Aaron. That's my favorite version of Bullseye. That was my expectation going this season. This episode was like the big, like, again, that little moment from last episode, and this whole episode is like, oh, okay, they know exactly what they're doing. It's not 100% the Jason Aaron thing, because that I wouldn't put that on anyone's shoulders to do 100% the Jason Aaron thing, but this is
right.
So what I'm saying is the psychology that we do have here that we explore is that he has an unrealistic expectation. Basically, the Bullseye that we see, how do we get a guy who's that precise, who's that great a shot? Like, how do you get that? And the way we get that is that he has an unrealistic expectation of an abandoned child. An abandoned child to I'm sorry, let me rephrase it. Yeah, that's it. They're a little dodgy on like when his parents exactly died. I mean, it sounds like they abandoned him to the point where we know they died at a certain point. It's a question of when that happened. But I'm sorry, I'm getting semantical here. The point being, a kid without parents, he has this unrealistic expectation in order to gain their acceptance or the acceptance of others, which is why he has to strive for exceptionalism. And what's so fascinating about this, Tiki, is that, again, we're slowly but surely, in the background of this, we're building a parallel to Daredevil. This is a guy who built Daredevil-level skills out of desperation for love and connections, which Matt, through his history, has been taught by Stick to avoid those very things. And there's such a great dichotomy building between the two of them and how they form their exceptionalism,
Mm-hmm.
And as we see, he doesn't take well to the harsh realities, which many times leads to murder and violent actions. And of course, his kryptonite is that everyone he loves and trusts in life dies or leaves him, making him basically fueling his obsessive compulsive tendencies, fueling the obsessive compulsive disorder, which basically is kind of like, I just love the opening of this episode. It does remind me a lot of Monk, by the way, in terms of just like literally it's like him straightening the thing before he leaves, and everything's the precision of the room. It's wonderful. But again, we see like this is not a guy he's not just a good shot. Don't get me wrong, nothing against Hawkeye. And again, there's another great character. Hopefully, we'll get some later.
Here's the thing. Like, basically, what you're getting at is that, like, visually speaking, throughout what we're seeing with him, he's a very balanced person. You know what I mean? Like, we see balance as like a big part of his life. Everything being symmetrical. But then, like, from a personality point of view, it's like it's anything but, and it's like that's just a really fascinating dichotomy that we've got going on.
Precisely, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Where you have a character where, again, he's so. Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess you said it better than I was going to. So anyway, I love that he's looking. I love that he's looking for. Basically, he looks for structure, and as we kind of glean through the therapy tapes and kind of the way he's living his life now with kind of the obsessive compulsive kind of brought about visually. Where I guess I was getting at was that, again, Hawkeye is a character. Again, we'll probably learn a little bit more by the time he gets like a Disney Plus show. But the idea is like there's a guy, he's real kind of casual, nonchalant. He's got a family, he's got all this sort of stuff going on. Or Bullseye on the flip side of things. Again, dedication has got him to that place. He needs the structure. He needs to be that marksman. Again, that's kind of where you have in your dichotomy, your marksman character. It's not just a talent, it's a lifestyle choice. He has to live this way. He has to find that structure, and he has to be, and basically the implication is that, he went right into the armed forces and everything.
Kind of like reminds me of a Dexter Morgan situation.
Very much so. And of course, Dex being the operative name. All that too, right. Yeah. But that's the thing. I love the sense that he's channeling the need for structure and his gift into a productive ways. So he's not just murdering people. That's why he's an FBI guy. And again, I love how we're learning all this about him. We're learning why he is at the place he is with that skill set. Why hasn't he gone off on his own, just tried the superhero route or anything? Why hasn't he done that stuff? Why hasn't he just become a murderer? And it's the fact that he's trying. I love that he's trying to be a good guy. That was the fascinating layer I never in a million years would have attached to Bullseye. A guy trying to channel his really dark talents into something positive, because again he was surrounded by these positive figures in his life, and he's trying to do right by them in one way, shape, or form. But again, he just lacks the empathy or lacks the compassion in some variety. He lacks a way of bringing it out. He just kind of lacks that a little bit of that humanity. It's not a total lack of humanity, but again, he can't reconcile that within himself, and that's what brings about kind of these interactions that are kind of going south for him. And of course, the bigger
not issues that someone suffering from autism would relate to, Dragon, by the way. Totally not anything that I would personally get any sort of empathy with.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you don't have marksmanship anyway. Right. So of course, death is a shadow. I love that death is the shadow that he can't shake, which of course, kind of in life leads him to the suicide hotline. I love that his occupations are ones that involve death, because death has been the shadow in his life. His parents have died. His therapist has died. All the figures keep dying or leaving him, and again, it leads him to an occupation that involves death continually. So again, deep down, of course, he's very unstable, and I love that one last thing I'm going to geek out here about Bullseye before I guess we move on is that I love that, of course, Bullseye being that unstable character. We with all this stuff, we channel that never miss trigger with Bullseye. The idea, if something doesn't go right, that's what sets him off the deep end. We're going to get into exactly how we visualize that later on. But you see what I'm getting at, right? The whole I'm Bullseye, I never miss. Kind of that Colin Farrell gag, and of course that is a big fixture of that character. Bullseye is very proud. One of the great lines of Bullseye is that he only brings one bullet to a job because he knows that's all he's going to need. If he ever has a gun on a job, he only brings one bullet.
Yeah.
So it's just to summarize all of that, just kind of oh my God, Bullseye is so cool. I mean, just to summarize all of that and what the arc is. So again, we see the origin. We see why he's accurate, why he's a stickler for the FBI job, because it's all he has, and that's going to be important going forward. Because again, if his job's in jeopardy, again, that's taking the structure and the stability out of his life, which will set him off the deep end. He's trying to channel his gifts. His other social ties in life are definitely kind of blow up by the end of the episode. Also, by Kingpin's meddling. That's the fascinating thing about this episode. The Kingpin does kind of orchestrate what Bullseye goes through in terms of his relationship in this episode. That's Kingpin's orchestrating things too.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So he's basically spiraling into kind of a desperate place. Basically by the end of the episode, he's kind of spiraling into a desperate place to maintain his status quo. He's just completely spiraling. And in terms of trying to maintain his status quo, of course, he's kind of retreating back to the therapy tape. So that's right. So the therapy tapes are the important note to hit with the arc there. Okay.
Alrighty, so let's get into Karen. Of course, Karen has a big theme of the past coming back to haunt you within this episode. That's going to get later further explored as we go deeper into the season.
Yep. And that's the thing, Tiki. Past is another big theme of the episode. Again, the episode themes, I guess, would be gamesmanship and the past. Of course, we go into Bullseye's past, we go into her past, and of course, Kingpin's past with Vanessa is what's fueling all of his actions. So the past is very operative in all three of our main arcs of the episode here. So in terms of what Karen does this episode, Matt has. Sorry, Matt has kind of fueled her. Matt going Matt's lone pursuit of Fisk. It has definitely kind of she's channeling Matt's lone pursuit of Fisk, because again we kind of went in these episodes before where Karen and Foggy are kind of are representative of the two sides of Daredevil and Matt Murdock this season, where again she's going the way of Daredevil this season and Foggy's going the way of Matt Murdock. He's trying to keep the law and order of taking down the Kingpin aside, and Karen is going the way of let's throw caution to the wind, let's just challenge the problem, let's go up to the bad guys, look them in the eye, and kind of face them with their actions. She's taking the very proactive, dangerous approach. And again, especially with Matt out of the fray right now. She's going at it without a safety net at all, without the safety net of friends. Exactly what Matt's fatal flaw this season is. Which leads her to Felix Manning.
Yeah.
What did you think of the Felix Manning scene?
Of course he's got a lot of dirt on her, so it's a pretty tense conversation. I don't know. I don't really have any strong takeaway, Dragon. I got to admit, to me, it's just all kind of build up to her flashback. I don't know.
Of course, and speaking of which, again, this is like, the past and how it shapes you theme really comes into play during that scene where, again, we're setting the seeds of Karen's past and the idea of her past coming back to haunt her. And that's kind of what Felix Manning, in some sense, is kind of warning her of right now. Like, Felix is saying, like, hey, if you come after me, I'm going to blow up your past. It's going to come back to haunt you. He basically puts in perspective, I dug into your past. It's not exactly a state-kept secret. I dug into your past and knows all the intimate details. And it's just kind of a warning that, again, if you pursue things like this, you're opening yourself up to a lot of scrutiny. And again, like, this is what I do. I make problems disappear. I don't fix things. I make them non-existent.
Mm.
And again, like Bullseye, she has a flaw that manifests itself positively in her gift. She has her. Basically, let me rephrase that here. So that's the thing. She has her fatal flaws. That Bullseye, of course, he has the marksmanship, and he's going for all these sorts of things, and he channels that into the FBI. And of course, ultimately, it's going to be from FBI to essentially villain of the season. And Karen's thing that we kind of put in perspective here with Felix Manning is that her drive, and of course, it's something we've explored very much in like Jessica Jones as well. We have something like we have a character who is we flow around. She's a drug addict, and this is the first time we've ever said Karen Page had a drug problem in this episode. That's a big thing. It's going to come back later on. So again, we set up the whole drug addict thing many times.
Drug addicts destroy families.
Well, that's the line, but I was thinking, that's the line. I was thinking more along the lines of, again, it's like how Malcolm and Jessica Jones, he was a drug addict, and of course he fueled that into being proactive and just keeping himself busy. And what we have with Karen is that she's channeling her past of being a drug addict into being the driven reporter that she is. And again, she's like really chasing.
I want you to confirm one thing for me. In the comics, doesn't she become a drug addict later, or is that like her? Does she have a past with drugs before the drug thing in the comics?
Well, I want to say it was. I mean, basically I know the drug problem is like her undoing later in life because she seemed really well put together. I don't know if there was a history that then went that basically she had a past. She kind of, I guess, rehabbed herself, and then it took over. All I know is it really took over in the latter part. I don't know if I think that was just their way of acknowledging the drug acting without just having it kind of overcome her in the present. So I'm pretty sure it's. I don't think it was in her past. I don't think it was.
Gotcha.
I know she has a bit of a. She did get into some seedy stuff. I just can't remember if all of that was in the past. At the very least, I don't think the drug thing was in her past. But I can't speak authoritatively on that at this moment. When we get down the line, I'll look into that, so we'll know. All right. So of course, the other thing of her past, the other last big thing to note is that her season 1 past comes back to the fray here with Nadim. With Nadim's asking her about Wesley, and of course that's a huge thing. Again, it's a huge kind of flag that's being planted here. That hey,
I do not want to hear that name ever again in my life, ever associated with me.
Oh yeah, she does not want that at all. It's Wesley. Of course, I love that we didn't just. I never thought they were going to sweep it under the rug, but again, I was just so happy to hear that in this episode. Yes, we're covering so many things in this episode. We're doing Bullseye's past. You're covering, like we're kind of planting the seeds that Karen did in fact have a drug problem in this universe, and of course it's gonna. In the MCU here, and we kept building up like Karen had a really dark, like something really bad happened in her past, and of course like we're a little vague on the details of that, and of course we're checking off all the boxes, and we're going to cover the Wesley thing. This season's shaping up big time, buddy boy. That's kind of what this episode's really coming across for me when I was watching it the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So of course. Her past is coming back, and also the other thing from season 1 that the culpability factor, that's a big thing that's floated around to both Karen and Foggy this episode. Where Karen knows Matt's identity, and And again, that's a problem that's going to be looming. If she knows it, then of course she's going to be culpable for a lot of things. That if Matt is ever caught and he's ever prosecuted, they're going to go down with him. That's something that Foggy is desperately trying to prevent, as well as all of this past coming back to the forefront. All of, the culpability with Matt, but more accurately the Wesley thing motivates her to confide in Foggy. Like, she tells Foggy about Wesley. As we do kind of the classic Breaking Bad thing here, where give me $1, give me $5. Or else they become your lawyer. It's the little technicalities go well.
Yeah. All right. I guess that's it.
I'm sorry. I hate again. It's a really short. Everything's going to go by really quick. So one last thing.
Okay.
Karen is given perspective by. Okay, real quick. So.
All right.
Karen is given perspective by Foggy's kindness in the episode, which of course is going to parallel what we learn in the flashbacks in later episodes. Again, so it's like Foggy's like saying, "Oh, Karen, I got to protect you from going on the stand and everything. We're going to make sure you get. This is not your fault. We let you in when we shouldn't have. It's our fault." And basically, Karen again, she's saying, I'm not the good person you hold me up to be. Again, in setting up the flashbacks, and she needs help after, not just for the flashbacks. And ultimately, I think at her core, it's because of what we're going to learn in her flashback episode. But more accurately, it's like the Wesley thing that she kind of drops in Foggy's lap, and this does dramatically this alters Foggy's view of her. This taints Foggy's view of her. So that's going to be really interesting going forward. Okay, so yes. Without further ado.
All right. Sorry, let me switch it back over. Let's get into the daring dynamics. Come on,
Yeah.
D.
Come on, D.
Got 2 D's. All right. Anyways.
Double D in the morning.
Oh boy. All right. So let's talk about Foggy and Dragon.
Nadim.
Oh god. Oh boy. All right. So yeah, Nadim, of course, we've always from the beginning covering season 3, we've praised him for basically being the good Madani, like an FBI agent created specifically for the show, who is actually interesting. You like follow his family life and you get his motivations and you want to see him succeed, even though he's an obstacle to the main characters. They did it also right, and this episode is one of the best examples of that, where he's getting all up in Foggy's face and interrupting the election, and what goes down, Dragon.
So what's great about their dynamic here is, one, we have these two very decent representations of law, but they're on opposing sides. And this is like the thing every lawyer show always has to contend with. And it's always the thing we have, like the district attorney or the prosecution and our defense attorneys. That's usually kind of the battle you have there. I know Nadim's not exactly an attorney, but I'm just and usually when it comes down to law, you have that sort of like butting heads, and always the prosecution always has to be the bad guy, unless you have that rare case where you use the prosecution's the good guy. It's a weird thing. Point being, I'm saying it's a thing, procedurals that can get old if it's not done right. And what we do here so well is, again, like as you said, Tiki, we understand where Nadim's coming from. We know at the last episode we established that Kingpin has something going on here, and we know absolutely that Kingpin's cooking something up and he's using Nadim. Of course, the question is, like, how much does he have figured out beforehand, which we're still kind of unfolding as the episodes go on. But the point is, Kingpin's cooking up something. We, the audience, have sympathy for Nadim because he doesn't know. It's like, oh, Nadim, if you only knew.
Mm-hmm.
But what I love here in that dynamic, the thing that really sets it out from the pact here, is the fact that they really have a conversation. They have a conversation about truth. And it's about the truth of the friendship between Matt and Foggy here. And again, I love that Nadim, he's not saying anything that's not true here. And again, Nadim, at the very end of this conversation, he kind of puts in perspective that, hey, I know that your buddy is leading a double life here, which, as far as he is concerned, that is true. And Foggy's not lying to him here. Again, being the very competent lawyer that he is, he knows he can't lie to the guy. And he's telling him very, like, we had a bar, we went at the bar, we were talking about how our friendship wasn't what it used to be. All of this very true. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, the heartbreaking thing is when Nadim springs the whole bar ID thing. He's learning that's why I couldn't find my wallet.
That was the big, like, we were wondering when that was going to get paid off when we were initially watching through that. And not great on Foggy's end. It's good to know, rewatching through, that it ends on good terms, but this is seriously a breach of his trust in the moment.
I love how like Foggy has to keep up a strong front here, but again, it's like he's kind of getting surprised in the moment here. But you feel your heart goes out to him, like learn that Matt only. I don't think it fully dawns on here, but he knows that Matt stole the ID. But I wonder if it's like, oh, that's why Matt hugged me. He stole my ID. He stole my bar ID.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Matt. I mean, look, we love the guy. Obviously, we love the show and the guy who's in the show. But still, it's the fact of the matter. Matt has done some unsavory things to poor Foggy this season at the start. Yeah, so again, it's the agent versus the lawyer who, again, and of course, I love that they're on such even terms here. Again, the lawyer can analyze all the leading questions here, and he's just making basically he's not intimidated by Nadim at all here, and he's like saying, "You come here, you crash my campaign event, and you try to intimidate me here." And again, he's just making all these accusations and everything. Of course, again, Nadim is not asking anything untrue here. Well, again, he's obviously he's being led astray here, but again, Nadim's asking the pertinent questions and threatening that, again, you guys are going to go. Basically, he puts the issue in perspective that Karen and Foggy are dealing with later, where you're going to be culpable for when we do catch Murdoch. You're going down with him as an accessory. And of course, Matt, I love that Foggy's perceiving this conversation on the other level of like what Nadim's saying is true, only it's about being Daredevil. That's not good. The end times are coming. These are the end days that Foggy's going to dread for a long time. He puts kind of Foggy's fear into play here, but again, like two nice guys, just kind of on like nice guys, just on very kind of separate paths here. But again, they're kind of like having a little bit of crossover right now.
Right.
All right.
Okay. Oh boy, let's get into Dex and Julie and Dragon. You know, it's like it's not like me having social problems when it comes to interacting with women is something that I can relate to at all, right? It's like, oh God, no, I don't have that problem whatsoever, right?
Yeah, you're lucky that way. You have nothing there.
So, I mean, suffice to say, this hits a little close to home for me. Dragon, the last girl I dated, there was actually a moment in our very brief relationship where I said her last name and she didn't know how I knew her last name, and I had to quickly clarify, like, no, I know it from work. It's literally on the schedule, you know. But still, it's like it kind of freaked me out. And I'm like, no, God, no, that's not, you know, I'm not like cyber stalking you. It's literally like written right there on the schedule for all to see. So
if you had the dog moment,
Dragon, I can relate to the struggle that Dex is going through in this. It's just like, you know, you get into a person. I'm not saying that, you know, cyber stalking and everything like that. I'm not saying what Dex is doing is right at all. Obviously, I'm just saying it's, you know, it's like it's a thin line. You know, it's like a slippery slope between admiring someone and, you know, maybe admiring them a little too much.
But Tiki hit it right. You were right there with admiring, because that's the fascinating thing about this dynamic. So, given what we learned about Bullseye in the flashbacks and how it correlates to now, so the idea is that Julie is, as far as he sees it, Julie is a good person. And yeah, I'm not saying she seems to be nice too. You know, Julie's a good person. She's very social.
Nice girl.
Yes, she is a nice girl. So Julie, that's the thing. So Julie is, you know, she's a good person. She's very sociable, and you know, she does a little bit of social work on the side. You know, at least presumably she's working on the suicide hotline. She's giving money. You know, she's checking on the homeless during her morning runs. You know, the point is like she is everything of. Point is she's a good person, a good role model, and again, she's the balance that Dex is looking for. She's everything that Dex feels that he needs to achieve balance and stability, which again he's had with these figures in the past, like Dr. Mercer, the therapist. He needs a new Mercer in his life, and that's kind of the role that he's assigned to Julie. Like literally after Mercer died, when he went to the suicide hotline, it was Julie. So he's been probably following Julie ever since that day. And what I love about this Tiki, the whole admiring thing, is that I love that. I mean, I think it's such a brilliant choice that it's not really a sexual lust at all. You know, he's not.
No, it's really not. Yeah.
I love it. Again, he's going after for pure, like, the moral reason of it all. Again,
right,
it's not,
right, for sure.
It's not sexual. It's not exactly in, like, a loving relationship, but it's more, it's kind of, he's lusting for a good person, morally. Basically, it's a morally complex person lusting for a good person that to balance them out. And basically, he's looking for someone to say, you're not bad because I'm here. Basically, wants that, like, North Star saying, to help him kind of convince himself that he's making the moral choices, you know?
Uh-huh.
So similar to Kingpin. Similar to Kingpin's arc, and again, I love the parallels that we build between Kingpin and Bullseye this episode. As similar to the Kingpin, he seeks a relationship to not be the bad guy or the ill intent, if you want to look at it, the full context of season one. That's the thing. Is like that's the whole purpose of Vanessa in the history of in the Kingpin stories. Like when he first met Vanessa, it was like Vanessa made him feel not just like the mustache twirly bad guy. Made him feel like again bolstered his true beliefs that I'm doing something good for this city, that I'm not going to become like my father. That's the story of the Kingpin. That's essentially what Vanessa's role was. So again, right now, and again, we have like this really great visual moment where he's like kind of looking at Dex and he's looking at Julie in the black and white thing where they're eating. By the way, they were eating the pizza during that part too. So I think they even paid off the pizza time gag. Yep, wonderful. Of course, very fascinatingly, Kingpin reunites them. The idea, Tiki, is that Fisk hired her because again, she just got a new job out of the blue at the hotel, and Kingpin orchestrated that.
Mm-hmm.
He brought her there, and of course, they're connected by the past. Very minimally in the past, because the idea is like they probably, the most they probably went out for when the group probably went out for drinks after work or something. That's probably the most they hung.
Like that. Yeah.
That would be my guess, and of course, I'd imagine he's probably just kind of the guy in the corners during most of the time, just kind of like keeping to himself, not kind of making the lead, because he just wants to be around. Doesn't really need like a relationship. He just wants to kind of have her there. So of course, again, just like it's kind of a very they have two different readings of their history. Where again, he views this kind of like an intimate history. You've always been there for me. I've always modeled myself after what you would do morally. Where again, she's like, oh,
well, I think a big tell in that regard is that she doesn't even think that he'll remember her when she introduces herself at the restaurant.
Exactly, and that's their dynamic, and the kind of their dynamic of dependency. They have two very different kind of views of their dynamic and their dependency. So. Of course, ultimately, he is, he's stalking her, and he tries to, I don't mean just in that accidental way, folks. I mean, he's literally very methodically stalking her. Just to
pizza time.
Exactly. He tries to, and again, I love they made us, there's such a sympathy for Bullseye. Again, as you said, I don't mean it's to parrot what you said just now, but again, there is a sympathy you feel for him, you understand where he's coming from, but again, obviously there's something not right upstairs with him. But you know that again, he's not intending any harm to befall her there. Where again, he's getting in the moment. The way that plays out with the dog bit, where basically says like, you don't have a dog, where she kind of makes up an excuse to leave.
I don't have a dog.
Precisely, and of course, just again this. Basically, it is a misread of the situation. Essentially, what he wants to tell us, what he's going to tell her in future episodes here, that again, it's not a sexual thing at all. That again, it's just the fact that
exactly right.
So again, he is when he's stopping her there. Again, this is where the sympathy really comes to play. Where you understand, like, no, he's not. It's not necessary. I mean, of course, it's creepy in concept, but the idea is like he's not being creepy in the conventional way. It's the sort of like again, he's just lonely essentially. He needs he basically trying. He's a little clunky at making friends. That's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So sad.
It's so sad.
Okay. I guess we're we really are breezing through this. Okay, let's
I told you it's going by quick.
Yeah, okay, let's go into what made this episode really hard, Dragon. Really, really hard.
How it dared to be different.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously the whole fact that like everything kind of is predated by the flashback, and not to mention Kingpin interacting with the flashback in that black and white way. I don't want to say too much about that, of course, because that kind of ties into your moment, but some awesome stuff with that.
Of course, just the way we direct that with Kingpin observing the memories, that's great too. Just how he's just kind of like it's like we're not just doing. Like obviously, Jessica Jones made a whole flashback episode, and you can do flashbacks in a variety of ways. And this is the way you can intercut it in an interesting way. You can just like have a whole flashback episode. What we did here is that we kind of put Kingpin into the flashback, which is really ingenious. I thought it's a visually striking way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the black and white color theme. So I love we keep building this, Tiki. And again, I would argue again, this is me on the rewatch, kind of noticing something where if again. Look at the color theory. Of course, color theory was a big deal in the first season of Daredevil. And, color theory is kind of an important thing as well, where, you just have we have Daredevil again return. Basically, the visual we have here, of course, speaks to a lot of this color theory. Daredevil's in the black, Kingpin's in the white, kind of publicly. He's kind of like the white hat, and Daredevil's kind of the black hat, as seen by things, and of course, just vice versa, and all that sort of stuff. Where Kingpin's going for is kind of like the White Knight of Hell's Kitchen. And what I've loved that we've done on the rewatch, what I've noticed is that there's a foreshadow with the whole Bullseye thing, where Bullseye is a character. If you look at his apartment, you look all over the place. You look at his apartment, you look at the flashbacks, you look at in the episodes that led up to this, the color theory is that Bullseye is wearing Dex is wearing black suits with white shirts. And of course, if you look at the Kingpin, then kind of our image here, what ultimately will reveal to be, kind of the Kingpin operating here, white with black on the inside. Again, we're showing us how he's very simpatico with Bullseye, ultimately. Of course, Bullseye is a character. He wears black and white, of course, a little nod to Bullseye, but as well, a hint that these characters are paralleling each other. And as well as them paralleling each other, I'm going to read into this deeply, okay? So you can just call me crazy by all means, okay? I would argue that the way Kingpin, ultimately, when he did his big transition in season 1, he went from wearing a black suit to wearing gray to ultimately wearing white. He did very much kind of like the arc of the Kingpin's wardrobe on that front. And gray is kind of the big middle ground in between. And the mixture of the two colors, he's kind of gray. He's trying to distance himself from being a bad guy, just kind of going from the morally gray area.
Gotcha.
And I'd argue that the flashbacks predominantly are gray. It's black and white, I know, but it kind of makes gray overall. I like to think
it's the past, but it's based in the truth, but it's the truth that we want to remember about ourselves.
Sure, but more accurately, again, it's the fact that Dex, as a character who operates, again, he as a kid, especially. I mean, as he is now, but especially as a kid, again, he's a kid who is not. He's not pure evil. He's not pure evil. But again, he's not all good either, because he's kind of causing, he's doing some stuff in the flashbacks there. Again, the point being, he's morally ambiguous in his youth, and I like how I think I would argue the gray visually symbolized that with kind of the gray, the moral grays of life, perhaps. All right, let's see. Hit us with a few.
Well, I mean, like I said, the flashback is kind of like the main thing that kind of like cements the episode, just kind of like that whole. Everything that happens in the episode sort of ties back to that. I mean, I really do like the how this episode is a setup episode, but it's a setup episode in the best of ways, and it's compelling in the way that in which it does it. I don't know. There's not, like I said, the flashback really does kind of like, weigh so much into the actual episode. There's not really a ton to say beyond that, to tell you the truth.
Well, there's the Ben Donovan audiobook thing, but
we already very much went into that. I think that's very well documented.
We did.
I think Ben Donovan is reading Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
I like to think he's reading Kevin Smith's audiobook. That's what I like to think. I can't repeat the title, but I'd like to think it is. So, okay. Well, I mean, there's also one other thing with the color theory. There's other stuff. I just wanted to kind of hit this too. Is I love that I'm gonna make a leap here. I'm gonna make a leap that, again, we have the color theory in terms of morality, but also potentially, we hit it from morality and contrast to the Kingpin. But also, I'm going to argue this: service. Think about it. When we see Julie in the episode at the bar, at the hotel bar, she's wearing black and white. I like to think it's kind of the color of service, and ultimately Bullseye's role in the season and the series. Again, I know he's not fully in the black and white costume, but again, what we have here and what we have with the little nod to the costume and everything, black and white. Again, he's in service to the Kingpin. Bullseye's a character, again, black and white, usually hired by the Kingpin. Again, I like the little correlation of black and white there, potentially a little service, kind of like in service to the gamesman, as it were.
Sure.
Of course, we have kind of raised the question of second chances, because that is kind of that's kind of raised in Dex's story there, where he's asking about second chances, or the question of second chances being posed to him, and it's kind of a theme of the season with second chances. Again, Matt is given a second chance. Fisk, of course, is given a second chance in terms of working with the FBI and everything. Karen and Dex in this episode, they're kind of given second chances. Karen from what we're going to learn about in the flashback to where she is now, and ultimately in the second chance. Well, of course, Dex in the second chance of you do something bad in your past. I mean, can you redeem that by just kind of like channeling what got you in the first place into something positive? So again, second chances in all sorts of ways, shapes, and forms of the characters. Again, I guess thematically, a little bit of second chances in there. Predominantly, though, you have the past, and you have you have game. You have just the perfect game of it all with the metaphor there. We're against the idea that again we're manipulating things here. We have just Kingpin running the game. I already went through that. Let me see. The important stuff here. Very clever frame up plot on what Kingpin's pulling on Matt Murdock there. Again, pulled from the comics, and I love it. It's a really clever frame because again, nothing can contest that. We're using all the season 1 stuff to fuel that, so it's a really great way of using your continuity to your advantage.
Yeah, right. It's kind of taking what was already established and maybe even obscure bits about what was established and really playing that off. Making them really come alive.
It's a very simple and direct election plot for Foggy, by the way, because we keep doing that here too. Where again we have the thing when in Nelson Meets, where we have Foggy's brother saying, "Hey, free meat, like free specific type, of, like free meat or deli sandwich for whoever votes for my brother." No, Theo, you can't do that because.
He's not calling the cops.
Exactly, and this is the idea. Like, the idea is like he's a writing. I see, Tiki. I say this because I can't tell you how many shows, Arrow specifically, where they do. We've even seen it on Gotham as well. But we've always done like a running.
We've definitely seen it on Gotham. Gotham definitely had shenanigans when it comes to the mayor.
We've always seen election and mayor plots, and on Arrow, I can't get started on how many election plots there were. But it's just the fact of. That's what I'm saying. We had a very direct and simple. Okay, it's a write-in. He's trying to beat. It's like
the point is not to win. The point is to make a point.
Exactly. I don't know why I'm blanking on his. Oh, he's trying to beat Blake Towers. So I was blanking on his name. Yes. All right. Let's see it. I like that we're taking our time with things. So we have a really great line in the episode. Death always wins. What Dr. Mercer tells young Dex, and that line, that's a really good line about death always wins. And of course, that correlates to a lot of things, specifically against the fact that death is always going to. Again, how it's always going to haunt him in life. How it's always going to win out. So it's kind of interesting. Let's see. I'm sorry. Actually, what I was getting at the death always wins in terms of the perfect game message of the episode. That's what I think it's what I was getting at there. That's really cool. That's okay. Basically, if you're trying to if Kingpin's playing a game, Dex is trying to play the perfect game that you can never win. So again, a little bit of correlation with the death always wins thing there. Where of course that correlates to. I think we're going to get into momentarily, and might as well get into it. Oh, Matt's one last big important thing. I'm going to kick I had to be kicking myself. We didn't mention this. Then we'll move on. Matt's missing until the very end of the episode. That's a great thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up, Dragon. We would have been kicking ourselves. Yeah. You know what? I feel like this episode is so good that you barely even notice that, right?
Yeah, but I love that even though Matt's missing, again, like the episode, again, he does put a lot of things, he does put a number of things into play, because again, Matt going missing is what kind of leads the demon to meeting Foggy and Karen, and of course, all this by the Kingpin's hand. Again, all these kind of, think about the great sense of aftermath we have on the last episode, where again, it's literally after the prison episode of last episode. And now he's just missing for the entirety of this episode. That episode's all Matt Murdock focused. I'm just kind of flip it here. It's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's move on to
the blinding moment of awesome.
Yeah.
Got a big stick like Donatello. That's why Donatello's the best Ninja Turtle, Dragon. Anyways. All right, so let's see. I believe, you go first. You got the first chronologically.
Okay, so bear in mind, there's only one other contender for the blinding moment, but I kind of call him the rewatch because I love it so much, but it's something I can bring up. I'm going to bring up in Braille Trail, so we'll get to it there. But my go-to favorite moment from the episode, though, the sheer. For basically the Bullseye fan in me, I love the Bullseye origin scene. The very first flashback with young Benjamin Poindexter, the origin of Bullseye. So Tiki, this really hit me because, no pun intended, this really hit me because this is a deep cut. Again, as I mentioned, Bullseye's origin kind of changes from time to time. Usually they retcon it, but again, the idea is again Bullseye's a sick puppy, so we'll change the story now and again if he's asked how he came to be who he is. And this was always to me one of my favorite versions of the Bullseye origin. They kind of brought into the fray here the idea that he was a baseball player. He was a kid with the excellent marksmanship, and he offered scholarships. He wanted to play in the minor leagues. Basically, it was more high school than it was like a little league thing. Which basically they made alterations. I have no problem with the alterations. I think the alterations are made for the better and they complement the story. But basically, the idea, Tiki, is that in the comic story, Bullseye he played the game. And he was hitting it, and he just got bored. He wanted out of the game, and he kind of got into it with the coach. And then basically he threw the ball. And then, of course, this is the origin of the whole thing. He just says he throws the ball, kills the coach, and he says, "Bullseye."
Nice.
Wonderful. But yeah, we had a really great kind of more heartfelt version of it here, where it's this little flashback at the beginning. It's all you need to know. It's super faithful to the comics, inverting a little bit here, where again we see the mentor figures, with Coach Bradley. Again, we kind of cement, okay, he had this mentor figure that he did truly like, by the way. The guy did believe. He wasn't a bad coach at all. He literally took him out of the game because he gave him that kind of that hard truth of life that you can pitch, again, the namesake of the episodes in this flashback, the whole you can pitch 100 perfect games. It doesn't mean your parents are coming back. You're not going to come back. And of course, just in retaliation, he tells him to get a popsicle too. He tells him he's really comforting. We'll talk later. He's a really nice guy, and the idea is he just can't reconcile that with himself, and he tosses the ball, and of course, it ricochets and kills the coach. Which is exactly how it went down in the book and everything. But again, we added such kind of a great emotional layer to it, which kind of makes you very sympathetic towards Bullseye instead of like, oh my god, he's just so crazy.
Yeah.
And of course, what I love about this, and the main reason this has to be my blinded moment, Tiki, and I kind of stirred around this a little bit, is that how it parallels the backstory of Wilson Fisk. And this is where I'm just fully falling in love. Because one, I'm marveling at, oh my god, it's a deep pull from the comics with Bullseye, which is cool. Secondly, again, it fits in so well with the Netflix Kingpin that we've done. Of course, I'm head over heels for what we've done with the Netflix Kingpin. And I love that. Of course, my all-time favorite episode of Daredevil has to be Shadows Under Glass, the Kingpin origin episode, episode 8 from season 1. And, of course, the way he kills his father. So think about how that parallels Bullseye, Tiki. Think about that, where, again, Wilson Fisk is a kid who killed his father to protect his mother, and, again, in doing something he morally saw as the right thing to do. But, again, he didn't want to do. He wasn't a killer, but, again, violence was kind of thrust upon him, and he kind of took on the power. He took on the cufflinks, as it were. He's like, am I my father in the negative sense? Like, what am I pushing on to Hell's Kitchen from my upbringing? Like, how has Hell's Kitchen shaped me? On the flip side of that, as you said earlier, Tiki, this is where Kingpin sees a lot of himself in young Dex here, where again Dex killed essentially a father figure. He killed a mentor figure. He killed someone in just out of indifference, out of an anger. And later on in the therapy scene, we see he doesn't feel anything with it. He's unapologetic. Yeah, I killed him. He was a bad coach, and he felt betrayed by a person that he trusted, so he killed him. I just find that dichotomy so fascinating between these two. And again, it's like Kingpin sees enough of himself in there, but also he needs guidance, he needs mentorship. And again, he went a different way. He didn't have anyone there like I had with my mother. He didn't have that anchor. He didn't have that totem that kind of convinced him he was doing the right thing like I had. I can be that for him. You can see the idea coming into shape there. I love it.
Really good.
Fascinating. Okay.
All right, so really, Dragon, my favorite moment in the episode is kind of the date that goes terribly, terribly wrong, because it's very relatable to me. But just because I kind of skipped over that on my blindy moment, just because I wanted to talk about it with the obviously the dynamic. I mean the aftermath of it. When he gets back to his house and basically trashes his apartment. Dragon, don't want to get into specific details, but let's just say I have destroyed a room or two from time to time, being frustrated with my lack of social skills and just being pissed off at myself for that. So, suffice to say, it's not like I found this relatable or anything.
Yeah.
All right. I have, in fact, punched holes in walls, Dragon. That I have been there.
Well, what's great about this? The direction. Tell them about the direction of this.
What, the fact that the camera is kind of like a 360 camera shot?
Yeah, I love that 360.
Yeah, it's like a 360 camera shot, and as it goes on, like every time we circle around the room gets more and more destroyed.
And I just love the payoff from the very first shot of the episode. Because remember, it's Bullseye. Basically, it's like the Monk opening with Bullseye. Where again, I don't mean just to go over the. I love the show Monk. I just love this kid. I rarely ever reference. I rarely get the opportunity to reference Monk when we do these things. So I don't know. Taking full advantage, I guess. Point being, he's straightening everything up in the apartment. Even he slams the door again. Especially the last thing that he straightens in the room is that photo. His prize photo of him and Julie. It's the only photo that he has of the two of them together. Is just that group photo from the suicide hotline. And again, it's like just straightening out all those little images, going through this perfect, pristine black and white room, and he leaves. And of course, by the end of the episode, again, he cuts his hand. We have like a red stain on his white shirt that he's freaking out that he can't get it clean, and he's trashing the room. That 360 shot, and of course, what stops the 360 shot? Dude?
Stops the three. I don't know what does stop the 360 shot.
The knife throw. He throws the knife right, and it's like right at Julie's head.
Oh boy, bad
I
stuff.
love it, and Bethel's reaction after that too, where he just sees because he realizes what he's just like, oh my god, I threw a knife at the person I really care about here. It's like, oh god, and he retreats to the therapy tapes again as he's trying to maintain a status quo desperately. It's great.
Yeah, just kind of like he's realizing that he's becoming a monster, and he's like trying desperately to stop that.
Exactly. All right.
Right. So, I guess let's go into Braille Trail. Braille Trail. It makes me want to wag my tail.
Asbrael.
Oh God. All right. So I guess some of the big things, of course, Kingpin connecting the dots on Bullseye, and definitely getting into that. Like we're going to lay out by the end of the next episode, Bullseye will be fully in Kingpin's corner. Of course, the allusions to the drug stuff of Karen Page definitely going to play a role going forward. Of course, Matt Murdock being framed and being a wanted man, that's going to pay off.
Okay, hold on right there. Okay, I have to hit that one. It's a big one. Okay, so that was my runner-up for blinding moment because again, for me, that's a huge moment from Born Again because basically the idea is like literally the way the last episode ended is like that was the end of an issue and the beginning of the other issue. The beginning of the other issue was so the cab goes in the water and we open the other one where like the cab is being hoisted up and that's a great visual. It's one of the big definitive images. Like the eyes, like he was locked in a cab. How the heck did he get out? So the cab is being fished out of the bay, and then we have just the Kingpin just after that just going on to frame Matt Murdock, and oh gosh, I just love that moment there. Where it's such an that's the end of the cold open. The Bullseye thing, then we have that Kingpin moment. That's the perfect cold open ender right there. There was a lawyer, basically, there's a corrupt lawyer who's been my accomplice in all this. Matthew Murdock. Just oh my god, I love that moment so much. The frame ups from Born Again, the cab images from Born Again. There we go. And sorry, is there anything else any others you wanted to highlight there?
I mean, I think by the end of the season, we're going to finally find out what audiobook Big Bit Donovan really was listening to.
Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe. We might. So let's see. Of course, Bullseye's logo. Bullseye's logo on the hat. That's a big one. Okay, that's a big look. We don't really, folks. I hate to spoil it for you here, but no Bullseye costume this season, I'm afraid. But we do have the logo, and the logo does come back. The logo of little Bullseye on the hat will come back in way, shape, or form. So that's kind of a big foreshadow for the end of the season. Let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So there's that. Also, we met Felix Manning, who, of course, in Born Again, the comic. Again, they go a little bit of a different route here. Being Kingpin's fixer, again, Felix Manning is the guy who's responsible for the second Daredevil costume. Like, he's the one who orchestrated that one specifically. So, incident, we'll see. I guess we'll find out in the next episode or so if he's specifically behind that, or if he's just like, I don't know how much. We'll see how that goes. Point being, Felix Manning will Born Again reference as well. The tapes and Dr. Mercer, that's a big one. Okay, the tapes. That's going to be a huge thing for Bullseye. That's going to be a big his big weakness is going to be the tapes. So that's going to be important. Karen killing Wesley, that's going to come back in a big way as well. So let's see, Karen killing Wesley, the black and white motif. Kingpin's onto Daredevil, onto his identity. We reference episode 3 of season 1, the whole Healy trial. That's, we're pulling out a direct reference from all that. Karen gave Nadim big information. She kind of floated out the idea of Kingpin's using you. It's like the Red Line Bank, Felix Manning, look into those names, and he kind of brushed her off. So we have that going on.
Ooh.
And Bullseye stalking Julie and in the morning routine, where he knows exactly where she goes during the morning routine. So that's going to basically feed into
the creepy scene where he's like jogging, and and I think the big takeaway with that scene is actually the fact that he's admiring the fact that she's helping the homeless guy. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, the scene is like, it's kind of played as creepy, but by the same point, it's like, all right, well, that's that's, I guess, an admirable reason to be stalking someone. I don't know. It's kind of like a mixed tone, a mixed message in a good way, I guess.
And okay, I guess just literally it's going to get, since I believe the next episode is that again Julie being scared off by Dex, and of course Dex feeling really kind of off kilter because of that. So I think we're all good.
All right. Okay, let's change gears here. Let's transition into our final segment. Let's talk about the Nelson and Murdoch verdict. Yeah, bask in this image, folks, because we can't keep it up for very long, or else YouTube won't lock in our root image. So, yeah.
Well, inside baseball. By inside baseball, I mean baseball. It's going to ricochet and hit you in the head.
All right, there we go. Speaking of baseball, anyways, Dragon, start us out. Final thoughts on this episode. What do you got?
All right, look, this episode to me, I think the best way to describe this episode's about gamesmanship. It's very strategic in the overall narrative. Kingpin, he's strategizing. Bullseye is kind of the pawn or the piece. One of the, I mean, he's probably more lethal than a pawn, but let's just say he's being manipulated. He's a chess piece, and a player. More accurately, he's also a player giving his all in the game. Again, as the baseball player who needs guidance. The rest of our players and pieces are assembling for the game that's really about to be. So I love that. Really, this episode is Kingpin strategizing, kind of preparing to move all the places where they need to go, and then the real game. Yeah, remember next episodes where things will really kick off. So in the grand scheme of things, this episode is set up, but it's tremendous setup, and again, really set up, filled with character depth. I really appreciate that. It's simple but beautifully communicated. Because again, it's like, okay, we need a flashback to understand what's going on in Bullseye's head, and Matt's kind of out of the fray. So again, pretty simple when you think about it, but again, beautifully conveyed, beautifully directed. It's refreshing to see an episode without Matt as the focus, because we're so used to the guy, and of course this, and with him out of the equation, again, he's out of the equation, yet it completely revolves around him to an extent. Again, where his actions are, of course, kind of permeating the people's lives around him, which again kind of speaks to his ultimate realization, I guess, of I don't need. You're going to need these friends, and they're going to be affected by you with or without you in their lives. So it's kind of an uplifting message there. Again, about the kind of personal connections, and in an episode, it's all about Bullseye's kind of attempts to make these personal connections that usually end in tragedy. So. At the episode, at the end of the day, it's a Bullseye fan service episode, but with great substance to it, helping to facilitate the arc from him going from the white hat to the black hat, literally, and doing it very well. So again, I love this episode. It's one of the big standouts. I love it, but I mean, I don't know if it's going to top next episode. Next episode's quite a doozy, but this is a great one. I love
it. Yeah, I mean, I just generally speaking, I think this episode is a good point to why I honestly probably prefer season 3 as I think the definitive season of the show. Maybe not the best, but the definitive one, where it's all kind of coming together. The characters are like really dovetailing into each other in a really good way. The pacing is very on point. We're not dragging our feet with any of the stuff. We're really getting to the point of that and really hitting it hard out of the gate. And like I said, Dragon, I honestly think the best compliment we can give this episode is the fact that, we didn't even think to bring up the fact that Matt is not involved in the episode whatsoever in the Dare to Be Different stuff. It works so well that you barely even notice it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's about it. All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining. That's all for now. Until our next daring installment of Discerning Daredevil. Excelsior.
Enough said.
It's the Da
Bullseye.
Vinci Code. He's reading the Da Vinci Code, of course.
Bullseye.
I'm trying to. What if Chris? What if? No, I got it. What if? This is silly. I'm sorry. Just go with me on this. Just gonna redeem my my Da Vinci Code thing because I don't know why I did that. Take two. What if he is reading the audiobook of Goodnight Moon, specifically narrated by Christopher Walken? Good night.
Bullseye.
Room. Good night. Room. Good night. Cow. Jumping over the moon.